This week on Royally Us, news broke that Prince Harry will in fact be writing a very personal memoir.
By that point, I took matters into my own hands. It was like, I need to do this for my family.
Plus, we have exclusive reporting on how the royal family has reacted to Harry's decision to write the book.
I was worried about it.
And we're joined by artist Josh Adams to discuss his detailed comic book storytelling of Harry and Meghan's departure as senior members of the royal family.
Our goal is to inform, and our goal is to create content that keeps people from gaining the wrong kinds of information.
We've got that, plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers. I'm Joe Drake, back from vacation, here with my lovely co-host, Molly Mulshine. How's it going?
Good, Joe. How was your vacation?
It was lovely. I missed you guys. I saw that you had a very successful episode with Mandy.
Yes, it was great.
It was great. Really I kept up with you guys even while I was gone, and I saw all the comments. People were very comment happy again this past week. So we've got to read some. Eleanor Tan said, "It's kind of weird if people are supporting Meghan over Prince William. How true is that in the United States?"
I think
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty true in the US. Also, she wrote Meghan, which is a not very nice nickname for Meghan.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Eleanor, that's not nice.
I didn't even notice that, Molly.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been a thing with Meghan Markle?
That is allegedly what the staff in Kensington Palace called her, but allegedly, like, I don't know. It's not exactly
that is a bit of a stretch because
it doesn't roll off the tongue. It really only works in print. So I don't believe that they called her that.
Right.
But, you know.
And I glazed over that eye. I didn't even see it.
Yeah, me.
You're right. It only does work in print and you have to like really see it.
Yeah.
But to her point, I think, yeah, it is somewhat true that people don't necessarily defer to Prince William here in the United States.
Right. Like we fought a whole war over getting out of the monarchy. So, you know, it kind of goes deep.
Yeah. And there are certain people here, just like there are royalists in England, there are obviously royalists here in the United States, but there are also people that do not care one iota about the royal family. And no disrespect, I obviously love them and care deeply, but some people just are not interested.
Most people I talk to in the UK aren't interested. They just
Really?
are like, yeah, they don't really have an opinion. I have more of an opinion than they do most of the time.
Okay. All right. Well, Sally Bird writes, "I highly doubt William and Kate will ever be visiting Montecito." I kind of agree.
Really? I hope they will.
Well, I think it's more obvious that Harry and Meghan will go back before the Montecito trip happens.
Yes, that I would agree with 100%.
I think if Montecito happens, it would be like William and Kate come to America and do the tour, and then they do like a meetup in California.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Mardrette Kemp, that's a cute name. I like that, Mardrette. "Why should he care what people think about him? He'll still be king." I pulled this comment because she's so right. I mean, I know that he's human. Of course, he has emotions. But at the end of the day, you kind of do have to just like let it go, let the dumb shit go, and like realize you'll be king. Like focus on the positive, your family and your future, right?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the root of the different approaches of Harry and William, because William can afford to play the slow and steady game because, like this commenter said, he's going to be king, but Harry doesn't have that to fall back on. He's not going to have as much money as William is going to have. I mean, he's obviously always going to be fine, but I think this is maybe why Meghan and Harry felt it was more important to correct the record when inaccurate things were being printed about them. Whereas William and Kate are just like, this is a forever thing and we're still going to be in the top spot eventually, you know?
100% agree. All right, well, we got to talk about the memoir. There have been so many royal updates this week, but the number one story is Prince Harry is coming out with a book. So let's get into the royal roundup. Molly, I saw on your Instagram when the news came out, I knew we were going to talk about, I mean, this was like shocking, but also not shocking. What do you think?
Right. Like I was really surprised because Meghan's always been the writer and I thought she would be the one to write the book. Also, I was surprised because I was like, Harry's been talking so much about what happened.
Right.
I'm like, oh my gosh, there's just so much information out there. But then also at the same time, I read somewhere that at least 7 people have written books about Harry. So I get why he wants to write his own book about himself. I don't know. What do you think about this choice?
Well, the reason I say it's not shocking is because when I first found out that Harry and Meghan would be leaving, England, moving here, not being senior members of the royal family anymore, I knew podcast deals, book deals. I mean, all of that stuff in my head just became inevitable. I think the shocking part to me was how quickly it is coming out, because I do agree with you that there has been so much information. The interview, him coming back for Prince Philip's funeral, for the statue unveiling, there's just been a lot of Harry going on. So for this announcement to come out now is like, and another one,
Right. And it's kind of like everything that he's been doing really hinges on his family, his past, and himself. And that's sort of dangerous territory to be in, not only because his entire family seems to still be like furious with him. And the more he talks, the less likely it seems that they're ever going to reconcile, but also because he's going to run out of material at some point. Like, he and Meghan were only married in the royal family for like a year and a half. And of course, he has his whole life leading up to that he can write about and talk about. But, at a certain point, you need to have a new product. You need to have like something new to push forward. And I've also noticed they haven't really been doing much of the charity and service work that they said they were going to do. So
there has been a bit of a disconnect with that. I think I don't want to say they were blaming COVID, but I think that sort of altered, just life sort of stopping, but that's just
that's understandable for sure. I just think it's going to get harder and harder and harder for them to come up with content just based on this small window of time that they sort of keep dredging up. Do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
It's risky.
Well, he released a statement with this announcement, and I think we should read and then sort of dissect it. He said, quote, "I'm writing this not as the prince I was born, but as the man I have become. I've worn many hats over the years, both literally and figuratively, and my hope is that in telling my story, the highs and lows, the mistakes, the lessons learned, I can help show that no matter where we come from, we have more in common than we think. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share what I've learned over the course of my life so far, and excited for people to read a firsthand account of my life that is accurate and wholly truthful." What a way to end that statement.
I know. So my first impression is the writer in me and the former editor in me. I just hope his ghostwriter is going to talk to him about the use of cliches. I've worn many hats, literally and figuratively. He's going to have a chapter about the literal hats he's worn. Like, that's not great.
Oh my God, you're so right.
Like the whole thing. It's a lot of cliches. It's a lot of word salad. And like you said, it's saying it's going to be accurate and wholly truthful. It's like, well, I hope so. It's a memoir.
Yeah, I know. I interpreted that as like, don't worry, I'm not going to like skew the truth. I'm not like, I'm going to tell you what really went down. But you're right. Like, you shouldn't need to say that it's going to be truthful. A memoir innately should be truthful.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to read it. I'm going to devour it as soon as it comes out. I can't wait.
It comes out in late 2022. So again, I guess the announcement is now, we'll probably forget about it. And then Christmas time next year, it'll be news all over again.
Yeah. Allegedly, the first draft is already done. And, they said in the statement that he's donating the proceeds to charity. It didn't say how much. And we know that he got a $20 million advance from Random House, which is unheard of. And
Crazy.
the advance, of course, is kind of them saying, here's advance money from the sales it will make. So there might not
Yeah, he'll
be,
continue to make. if it
right.
does well.
But I'm wondering if the 20 million is part of the proceeds that's going to go to charity or not. Do you know what I mean? I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, I wonder too. I mean, he did say, as you mentioned, there will be proceeds donated to charity. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I think it's going to be an insanely successful book. So that 20 million, in my opinion, will turn into a crazy number at the end of the day.
Definitely.
Again, I think the reason he may be doing this is I think they're like, let's do the interview, let's do the book, let's get it all out there now. Let's make our money so that if we decide to disappear into Montecito, we can.
Yeah, but with that mortgage?
True. And also, as they said, Meghan Markle at the end of the day is a hustler, which I totally respect. I feel like I want to be as much of a hustler. And I think that's a good attribute to have. So like those type of personalities aren't comfortable just like sitting back and like retiring. It's like you want to be constantly like working and doing something.
I also love how like one of the biggest things that bothered me when they were leaving the royal family was the narrative that it was Meghan's choice and Meghan's going to do this, Meghan's going to do a tell-all. Harry's the one who's doing all of this.
Harry's been doing all, yeah, you're right.
You cannot blame Meghan. Like it was always sexist to be blaming Meghan. And now it's not only sexist, but like clearly inaccurate. Like it's very clearly Harry who's doing
You're
this.
so right. And I don't know why we're shocked and why we're not putting the onus on Harry. Harry was the one that was getting naked in Vegas. He was rebellious way before Meghan. So the fact that we're blaming Meghan for like the departure, I agree is sexist. And clearly Harry seems to be in the driver's seat with a lot of these decisions.
Right. And I really applaud him for getting his chunk of the royal memoir market because people have been making a lot of money off of him and his family with memoirs for years. So I think it's so beyond fair that he is doing this. But I do have one last snarky thing to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Which is that he said that he's not writing this as a prince. He's writing it as the man he has become. But he signed it Prince Harry, Duchess of Sussex. It's like, you're in America now. We don't use the titles. Like
People are having issues with that, I think. It's like, there's a lot of this, like, I'm the man I am, not the prince I am. But then it's kind of like, it's all over. The signature is Prince Harry. Maybe it's just, I'm just being devil's advocate optimistic. Maybe it's out of habit. I'm used to my signature kind of thing. I don't know, but you're so right.
When people still use their maiden name after they get married. But remember we talked about this, how at the end of the Dax Shepard podcast, they revealed that Harry's publicist had said to them, refer to him as Prince Harry and the Duke and Your Highness until he tells you not to.
Which I do think that's a good rule. But again, I totally agree. Like, either you are or you aren't. I mean, I would have kept it.
Me too, but I would be like, I'm being pretentious right now.
100%.
I would be like Princess Margaret. Like, I'd be like, you have to curtsy to me, and I know I'm being an a-hole. And that's just what I'm doing.
Like, keep that going.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be like, this is not about me being a princess. Like, of course it's about you being a prince. You wouldn't have this book deal if you weren't a prince.
100%. That is such, well, all right, we got to move on to the next topic because we both have a lot of opinions, and guess what? So does the royal family, because we here at Us Weekly got exclusive reporting on how they are reacting. And apparently the quote is, quote, the royal family is shaken up about the book. They are particularly concerned about what Harry will reveal.
I just like, this is the thing. Does he think this is going to help?
Who, Harry?
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, I think with the book, him revealing that he's going to come out with a wholly honest and truthful book, I think he's reiterating to his family, like, I'm not done telling the story, so y'all can go F off.
Yeah. I don't know what the goal is.
Something tells me there was no like meeting, like, hey, y'all cool with me writing a book?
Right. That's what the rumor is, that they had no idea. But I think, we sort of talked about how William did not look as jolly as Harry a few weeks ago at the statue unveiling. I wonder if it's because Harry did give him a heads up and maybe he was like, God, we're getting more of this stuff. Like, and he couldn't even fake being happy. I don't know.
Probably walking around with that knowledge in his head, like, Jesus, here we go. And, more to the story.
Right.
The insider did reveal to Us Weekly that, quote, they haven't received a copy yet and don't know what to expect. It's making them nervous. I mean, that's the other thing, anticipating it in late 2022, that like we now have a year and a half to contemplate what is in this damn thing. And if it was my sibling that there were issues with, I would be losing sleep.
I know.
Especially if there were things about my family that I was like, you don't tell anyone. And every family has that.
Right. Every family has stupid fights and things that sound awful like 10 years down the line. And I don't know, do you think they're going to respond to this? Like, do you think when the book comes out, do you think the royal family will refute it, or do you think they'll just let it stand?
It's a good question. I guess my gut feeling is whatever's in it, I think if there are like strong accusations, like the racial things that came out after that interview, yes. If it's just more of a truthful telling of his life and talking about growing up and Princess Diana and being in the military, I think they'll leave it alone. But if it's like laying into them, I think they might have to.
I also think Random House's legal team is going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb.
Sure.
And they're probably going to take out anything that's like extremely juicy that can be refuted. And I think anything negative is going to have to be based on Harry's emotional state. Like, it's going to have to be like the things he said in The Me You Can't See, when he said, there was generational trauma in the way I was parented. You can't really refute that because it's not really a concrete fact. So
Right.
I think that's probably what we'll see in the book, just so that they're playing it safe and, not getting sued.
For sure. But we will see. I mean, again, we'll be reading the book. We'll be talking about it for the next year and a half. But let's talk about some happy news. Over the weekend, Duchess Camilla turned 74 on Saturday, July 17th.
I can't believe she's 74. She looks great.
I thought the same thing. I would have guessed like 67.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That's a good guess. I think so did they release information about what they did to celebrate? Because I always picture Camilla being a fun party girl. I don't know why.
I didn't see anything yet. We'll have to do some research for next week. But a lot of the senior members of the royal family were tweeting and releasing Instagram posts. The Queen's Twitter actually released like a happy birthday Duchess Camilla, and then like did like a link to like her body of work over the years. So that I felt like was a really sort of like pat on the back of like, I like this woman from the Queen.
That's good. And I feel like that was probably a stamp of approval that was decades in the making after what Charles put his mother through in terms of his dating and marriage life.
Literally. And the second piece of happy news is that Beatrice and her husband celebrated their 1-year anniversary. It's already been one year, and they're expecting a baby this fall.
Yeah, very exciting. Another royal baby. They're just popping out left and right these days.
Yeah. They released a very cute selfie on Instagram. He wrote, I can't believe it has been 1 year every second of every day since has been so full of joy, happiness, laughter, and love. You are the kindest, loveliest, and most beautiful person in the world. Thank you, my darling, for every second. I love them. This picture is so cute and so normal. Again, if I had to be a royal, I think I'm picking Beatrice and Eugenie all day, every day.
Yeah, like lower end, not having to a lower end. That's terrible.
Well, no, I know what you mean. Like you're second tier. Like they're in the spotlight, but they're clearly not what William and Harry have to go through.
Yeah, you're just like cruising along. And Beatrice wore my favorite royal wedding dress, the one that was repurposed from the Queen. I thought that was beautiful. They had the smallest wedding. It was July 2020, and it was like,
Right.
lockdowns were pretty much in full swing. And I thought their wedding was really nice. And it must be
Really.
nice that their baby is coming at a time when things will hopefully be a little more back to normal.
Definitely. All right, well, it's time to spill the royalty. And this week we have a very, very special guest. He is the illustrator of an amazing comic for The Insider called A Battle Royal, The Two Sides of Harry and Meghan's Fairy Tale Marriage. And he's here to discuss the entire process of researching and illustrating the royal family. So please welcome artist Josh Adams. All right, Josh Adams, thank you so much for joining us this week. I'm so excited to talk to you. Molly actually was the one to find you. And when she told me about it, I was so thrilled when I looked at your art. For those out there that don't know, tell us about the project that you created surrounding the royal family.
Well, this is actually a sequel of sorts. It's a comic we did with the group Insider, formerly Business Insider, called Battle Royal. To play on the phrase,
Right.
And well, we feel like the people who are following the events of the royal family really they supported us so much when we did our first story, and us, in relation to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and we thought, it's a story that's not over, and so we thought we would continue because it's one of those things that so many people are paying attention to. And we thought that there was more story to tell.
Nice.
Now, did you know much about the royal family and all of its drama before this project? How much research did you have to do?
I knew a fair amount. To be perfectly honest, I guess as a person who came from the entertainment industry, I was much more familiar with Meghan Markle as an actor than I was when she joined the royal family, and on a level of connecting, it was more, oh, Meghan Markle has gotten married, rather than, oh, Prince Harry has met Meghan Markle. So I was certainly familiar with the royal family, and being a child of the late 80s and 90s, I was also very familiar with Princess Diana, which was obviously a huge impact on our culture at the time. But for the work itself, there was a ton of research that goes in, and Insider has a lot of experts who are always resources for us. So, we did our own research, we consulted them, we pull a lot of quotes, we read a lot about it. So, we don't skip out on the work. We make sure that we're telling as true a story as we can. And if you see, all of our Insider comics have essentially a bibliography of resources at the bottom of them. So if anything is called into question, it can be seen, the original source at the bottom of the article.
Nice. I'm looking at it now for like the upteenth time at this point. I'm so fascinated. I love it. It definitely is a timeline, and you're sort of walking us through step by step. Was there something that you learned that you didn't know before? Because again, like you said, the story is ongoing. It's also so convoluted. There's details that pop up almost daily. What did you learn?
I think for me, the biggest thing I took away from it was I guess the culture surrounding the royal family, the way that people respond and the groups that respond. Because personally, I didn't follow every single detail as it was happening, but there are people who do. And I reached out to a lot of friends of mine, friends from here in the US, friends from Canada, friends from the UK. And I said, what does this mean to you? And, that was a very eye-opening experience, because it is really like I suppose you could say, a non-televised reality show for some people.
Right.
But it is also, a very unique family's life. So I was really mainly surprised by the massive, I guess, following of it as a form of, wanting to know the day to day and the sort of crazy things that happen with this family.
Right.
How did you parse through in your research, the official palace statements versus the sources say, like everything that surrounds the royal family? It's sometimes hard to tell where the information comes from. So did you ever have to make a choice to say, I don't really know if this is true, but I'm putting it in, or anything along those lines?
We have a very, I mean, we're held to a very strict standard, if not for our own, personal standards, for sake of, legal, not wanting to get in trouble by saying the wrong thing or quoting the wrong source. But the process starts, it starts with our writer, Anthony Del Cole, who has written all the stories so far. But we all kind of start with a very wide scope, and we narrow it down, and we try and find a real direction for it. So for us, it really was this idea of like, okay, we have a timeline, obviously, of events. How do we convey this information in a way that speaks to that? And that's when the information starts to rise up from amidst all the noise, I suppose you could say. And so for us, it was what information speaks to this idea that they were a family once together, and they are now a family apart, and tie that to the timeline. So for us, it was this sort of giving an aesthetic that was like a photo album, which is what we were kind of going for.
Right.
And at that point, all the relevant details start to become clearer once we know how we're telling our story.
Definitely. I definitely see that photo album aspect, and I love that. I'm also noticing, and I have noticed, even one of the first things I noticed when I first looked at the work was sort of like the page tearing.
Mm,
What was
yes.
the inspiration behind that? I mean, I guess the obvious, but like, tell me about you guys deciding to work that in.
Well, it was literally, it's that time, the timeline aspect was really quite a prevalent theme that we wanted. And so if we say to ourselves, oh, we start with literally a drawing of a timeline, what is that key thing that comes through it? And we also have two sides of a story. And so what we had that kind of was the theme throughout all the different aspects of the story was a line that cuts through the middle of a story. And so once we knew that, there was a split, a divide or something, it was that idea that we needed a visual that could convey that there's two sides to the story, or that there's a perceived two sides to the story, and that there is a sense that, things happen in a very specific order. And so that ripping effect became a very interesting visual way of conveying that.
Yeah, I like that.
Interesting. Did you try to stay neutral while you were drawing these images? Were you ever tempted to give someone like a little scowl or something like that?
I try as best I can. We have had other stories that are not related to the royal family that, it's a little harder to be neutral. But really, I'm sorry?
Such as, just curious.
Well, we did one recently about, or at the beginning of the year, about the January 6th attacks on the U.S. Capitol. I could add to that any amount of anger and vitriol that I wanted to. But with something like this, the reality is when we get deep into the information, we're not looking at members of the royal family with any sort of malice. I mean, sure, you can find things to dislike about these people, but in those moments, we're not finding those moments to say, this person tried very specifically to, ruin another person's day. I mean, there may have been those things, but they're almost equivalent to things that we have in our own families. And so I don't go in there and try and paint a picture that's not, explicitly stated.
Right.
Both for truth and for, trying to respect my work on a personal level.
Definitely. One of my favorite images in the piece is sort of the superhero quality between Prince Harry and Prince William. And of course, everyone out there that watches our show is fascinated with the so-called rift between the brothers. Well, this was seemed to be more of a fictitious image because I don't think we've ever necessarily seen, well, maybe we have seen William running from a helicopter. We haven't necessarily seen Prince Harry, like, you know, kick off or throw off papers. What was the inspiration behind this?
I think it was more of, I mean, first of all, my career started in both working for the Sci-Fi Channel and working in comic books. So there are moments where it's hard to shake those superhero roots in my own drawing.
Right.
But I think that some of it is just, it's trying to add a little sense of visual drama or intensity to mimic that emotion, because, you know, they present a very cool demeanor publicly. And so we have to find our ways to emphasize that despite their public image, you know, they have emotions, they have, you know, these things that they hold in, and that's probably been a struggle for them their whole lives. You know, they've had cameras on them since they were born. So finding that way to say, hey, these people, you know, they're struggling, you know, they're dealing with, you know, issues between family members. And, you know, we've all had those kinds of problems. So we want to kind of convey that a little bit.
Was there one moment that you illustrated in this series that you wish you had more information on about what went on behind the scenes?
Oh, goodness. One moment is, it would be incredibly difficult, I think, to narrow it down to one. I wish that we could, you know, have a 360-degree camera catching every discussion and everything, because our goal is to inform, really, and to find a way to convey that information to, you know, an audience that may have only observed this stuff as a salacious headline scrolling past their newsfeed. And that's always been our goal. So we dig so hard to try and get as much relevant information from every scenario as we can. So there are every moment that we told a story. I mean, the events surrounding the wedding was always a huge one for us, because that seemed like, you know, I mean, planning a wedding for any person is a stressful thing. A royal wedding, I'm sure, is tenfold, but it felt like there was a lot of he said, she said sort of things kind of milling about that event that we would have loved to have seen a little more firsthand or known a little more about, just because that was such a big event.
Right. Finally, I'm just curious, after you've done this work as a sequel, you've spent a lot of time researching the royal family, drawing them. I'm also noticing a lot of, you know, sad eyes when I look at Harry and Meghan. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it safe to say that you sympathize with these two?
Yes, I do sympathize with them. I mean, I think that when you're under a microscope, I suppose it's one thing to live your life under a microscope. It's you know, people will throw, well, you're a famous person, that's the price of being famous. I don't think it's necessarily a fair statement, because you add to that fame that you're not necessarily under an analytical microscope, you're under a judgmental microscope. And so you have, you know, a section of media that covers everything you do very prejudiciously. You know, I think that's difficult. I think that any person under the kind of public pressures that they have would have a difficult time. So I do sympathize with them in that regard. You know, I can't necessarily sympathize with them in the fact that they're probably going to make more money than I'll ever make in my lifetime, but good for them, you know. Like, I'm not going to hate on that, but I will, and I always try and find the emotional connection to the stories that we do. This one, I think, was fairly easy to connect to. You know, there is a large group of people who are very judgmental, and a large industry that profits off of that judgment. So I can understand that.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for joining us. Will there be more royal works in the future?
You know, of considering the nature of the ones that we have done, it is my sincere hope that there isn't, because we are technically covering some difficult events in the lives of these people, and I would not wish them to have more difficult events at our benefit. But if there are stories that do come out unfortunate, you know, we would love to cover them, because our goal is to inform, and our goal is to create content that keeps people from gaining the wrong kinds of information. So, you know, we'll cover the stories that are relevant and need to be, you know, informed to the public.
Maybe the next one will be like you taping the pages together.
Yes, I would love to tell a perfectly happy story about how the royal family came together and did something truly great that brought them together. That would be amazing.
Definitely. Well, we agree with that, right, Molly?
Oh yeah, I'm just dying for them to get back together. I want the cousins to play. That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. Come join us anytime. And your work is incredible. You're very, very talented.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here, and I'd love to come back sometime.
All right, that's all the time we have today for another episode of Royally Us. Don't miss us every Wednesday right here on Us Weekly's YouTube channel.